Prime Minister Narendra Modi today reportedly told his cabinet that the opposition had made a big mistake by blocking the women's reservation legislation in the Lok Sabha and would have to face consequences for it. According to the reports, the remarks came during a cabinet meeting chaired by him held shortly after the government suffered a major setback in Parliament, when the Constitution 131st Amendment bill failed to secure the required two-thirds of majority. The bill, which sought to reserve 33% of seats for women in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies from 2029 onwards, was a key part of the government's legislative push. However, in a closely watched vote, it received 298 votes in favour and 230 against, falling short of the 352 votes that is needed for passage. The failure meant that the constitutional amendment could not be enacted, despite being presented as a landmark step towards increasing women's political representation in India. Well, along with this bill, the government had also introduced two related proposals, that is the Delimitation Bill 2026 and the Union Territories Laws Bill 2026, arguing that all these were necessary for the proper implementation of the women's reservation framework. However, after the main bill was defeated, the government chose not to proceed with voting on the remaining two bills. According to the reports, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed strong disappointment during the cabinet meeting, stating that the opposition's decision would not be forgotten by the women of the country. He reportedly said that the opposition had denied women a historic opportunity and that they would have to face the political consequences of this decision. He also stressed that the message of women's reservation should reach every village and every household, framing it as an issue of national importance rather than political competition. The opposition, however, maintained that it was not against women's reservation in principle, but objected to the government's approach. Opposition parties led by the Congress argued that linking the bill with the delimitation exercise raised serious concerns about the future representation of different regions in Parliament. They alleged that the proposed delimitation process could reduce the representation of southern and northeastern states, thereby altering the federal balance and deepening what they describe as a north-south divide. Opposition leaders also demanded that women's reservation be implemented immediately, based on the current strength of the Lok Sabha, which has 543 seats, instead of being delayed until after delimitation. Some parties, including the Samajwadi Party, further raised demands for a caste census and argued that reservation should also adequately reflect the representation of OBC and Muslim women within the proposed framework. The government firmly rejected all these allegations, insisting that no state will lose its representation in the Lok Sabha. Senior leaders, including Union Home Minister Amit Shah, assured Parliament that safeguards were in place and that representation of states, particularly in the south, would either remain stable or increase as the total number of seats rises in the future. The Prime Minister also attempted to allay concerns during the parliamentary debate, urging members to view the legislation as a matter of national interest and women's empowerment, rather than through a political lens. Despite all these assurances, the opposition stood its ground. Leaders such as Rahul Gandhi accused the government of using the women's reservation bill as a smokescreen to push changes in the country's electoral map. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra later described the defeat of the bill as a victory for opposition unity, arguing that the concerns raised had prevented an unfair process. Following the bill's defeat, senior government ministers reacted strongly. Union Minister Kiren Rijiju criticized the opposition, saying that they had blocked a historic opportunity for women's empowerment and would face the anger of women voters across the country. He called the development a black stain on the opposition's record and questioned their objections to a proposal that is aimed at enhancing women's participation in legislatures. Well, the failure of the Constitution 131st Amendment bill marks a significant political moment, halting what the government had projected as a historic reform. While the debate over women's reservation remains unresolved, the confrontation between the ruling party and the opposition has further intensified political tensions over representation, federal balance and electoral reforms in the country. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and